much for having me here today. I'm going to start off by defining the term ESG. ESG stands for Environmental, Social and Governance Factors, and it's become one of the buzz acronyms in the finance sector. There are many similar terms like sustainable finance, responsible finance, Paris-aligned investment, or SDG-aligned investment. And this is a concept that has very rapidly moved from boutique to mainstream finance, especially during the COVID pandemic. Now, on the surface, ESG sounds great, but there are some significant problems that impact the tobacco control community. One of them is that there are 600 different ESG methodologies out there. There's no defined standard. And some products labelled ESG over here might be quite different to products with the same label over there, including the problem being that some ESG products contain tobacco companies. Now, how can that be? I can hear all of you asking. And this leads to problem number 2, which is many ESG methodologies use what is called a best of sector methodology. And by that, I mean, they line up all the tobacco companies and only compare them to tobacco companies on ESG criteria. And even though they all score quite poorly, the least worst one gets a gold star or gets a gold medal and ends up in an ESG product. And we suggest that best of sector should be completely rejected for tobacco companies. The third problem is that people think that health is included in the S of ESG, but that's not the case. Very few ESG methodologies have human health as a metric. For example, most of them do not have mortality caused by the company as a criteria. So big tobacco, in my view, is weaponizing ESG. They're doing this in a range of ways. The first thing that they've done is managed to lure experts in sustainable finance to work for them. Now, this means that doors are being opened for big tobacco that shouldn't be opened for them, but it also gives big tobacco a seat at the table when it comes to crafting ESG definitions and standards. Tobacco companies are holding ESG events. We saw British American Tobacco do that back in the early few months this year, and Philip Morris are doing that this month. They're also producing really shiny, big, long sustainability reports, and they report against ESG criteria that they often set, including things like whether or not they're transitioning to heat not burn products, which is something that would be rejected as a metric of sustainability, widely rejected by the global health community. Now, these reports are picked up by ESG AI algorithms that just pull publicly available data that's out there, and often that data is not verified and not peer reviewed. But as a result, it means that big tobacco often gets very high marks for ESG, and it's things related to how diverse is the board composition, or how flexible is the workplace, what's the gender pay gap, do they have childcare centres at their offices, or do they use recyclable plastic? All things that just sort of pale into insignificance when you look at the impact on human health. So, for example, Refinitiv, a big ESG provider all over the world, just ranked the FTSE 100, so the 100 biggest listed companies in the UK, and they gave British American Tobacco 3rd place out of 100 companies for ESG. These kind of awards and ratings then get promoted to investors, and it really does confuse the investment community, who by and large have really come on this journey, especially with us recently at Tobacco-Free Portfolios, in rejecting tobacco and standing alongside the health sector and governments. So what can we do to respond to this? We need to push back, we need to use our voices, we need to be really united in rejecting this notion of a sustainable tobacco company that, in my view, is just absurd and nonsense. And we really need to insist that there's a baseline health standard that needs to be applied for any financial product that has an ESG label. Thank you.